In today's episode, I talk about your past and your future and how we can bring all these together to make decisions in the present.
This is how legends are made.
Hi guys, I hope you're doing super well wherever you are, and thanks for joining me on today's episode. I want to talk about something that I have mentioned in the past, but I wanted to expand upon it since I've had a conversation over the weekend and thought there may come some value for you in that. But first, don't forget, you can always drop me a comment or DM me. If there's a particular topic you'd like covered or a particular burning issue you need to resolve, DM me, let me know in the comments, and I'll reply to every single one of you. But moving on to today's topic, and it really was about a conversation that came out of the weekend. And it was that I was talking to some 20-year-olds, and interestingly enough, out of the whole conversation, they asked me a particular question. Now, it was quite fascinating because within the first 2 to 3 words, I knew what the actual full question was. And they were asking me if I could go back in time and tell myself something in my 20s, what advice would I give? And before they'd finished the sentence, I said, be braver. I want to elaborate upon the bravery side of things, just to clarify that it's not, at least in my definition, not about being confident. It's about being brave, and they are similar, I can recognize that, but they're also separate. Bravery doesn't require confidence so much, and to operate, you need to be confident to do something, but you don't necessarily need to be confident to be brave. Bravery comes from another source, if you like. For me, bravery was about not caring about, in my 20s, what I thought other people thought of me, either perceived or real, and caring a lot less. And not so much not caring about the results per se, but more about just expressing myself further by actually trying things more and not listening to that kind of inner voice which kind of held me back. Now, naturally, that's not about ignoring particularly the result or the effect of that. It's more about falling in love with the process of trying and learning. The kind of thing I realized in my 20s that, well, looking back on my 20s, that I was spending too much time overthinking and not enough time doing. So I think for me, if I could shout anything into my ear about being braver, attempting things, trying, failing, working it out, rather than trying to sit and wait for answers, go out and explore. My 20s had that availability. I was working, I had a job, I had money, so I was able to do those things. So for me, that was a really important thing to share. And it was interesting how the question came from these 20-somethings, which was really kind of like, I knew the answer to straight away, and I felt it was very pertinent. And they really took to it, and actually the response was very positive, which is great. And that kind of leads me on to the second thing that kind of came from this, and something I'm just kind of like mumbling around in my head with still. But I always find, but I want to suggest something, or at least kind of invite you to consider something as I go through this process. Remember, you look back on your 20s, 30s, or however you are, even a decade ago, and you'll look back at yourself, and there's going to be parts of your life that you may even laugh at now, thinking, gosh, that was so naive, so kind of silly maybe, or just a lack of knowledge and a decision that you could have done in a different way. You look back on your past with a kind of a smirk of thinking, wow, a decade ago I thought I knew it all. And we do that now. I'm in my mid-40s, and I can look back and laugh at my 20s and 30s of the perception I had of thinking I knew all the answers or was handling myself in a particular way. Whatever it may be for you, we always look back, and I think we can laugh at some of our naivety. But imagine this. That's what I've been playing around with. Imagine this. Take it forward. Where we are right now. In whatever it is, a decade forward into your life, into my mid-50s, I would look back at this moment and giggle at myself for my own kind of fears or insecurities. I would look back and think, wow, if I knew then what I know now, I would make different choices and may have done things differently. So it's interesting how we can be in the present and look back and reflect and maybe tease or mock or smile at how we behaved. But it's, I think, really fascinating how we can look at the right now and recognize that we are also actually able to consider ourselves naive and maybe being too cautious. And if we were a decade into our futures, we would see that better. So I think it's interesting to think that we don't have all the answers, and our future selves would look back at this particular point in time and go, you thought you knew it all. If only you knew what was going to happen. If only you knew the results. There'd be parts that maybe you could think about and go, gosh, in that decade you look back and you think, well, I wish I'd done something sooner. And maybe that thing you're looking at right now, you're not too sure about. Maybe that's a thing you should do now rather than wait any longer. Think about that person who's 10 years in advance of you, who can look back and say, start, go, you'll only find out. You can't guess. So with this double-barreled episode, I hope you got some real value from that, or at least something to think about when you're maybe looking at decisions. I guess the point is, if you can go back and a decade from where you are now, and what advice you'll give yourself then, and then imagine on the other side of that, going a decade into the future, and what do you think your future self would tell you about things that are happening for you right now? Fascinating idea, and I go and play with it and see what results you get. Other than that, I hope you're doing fantastically well wherever you are, and don't forget, any topics, any questions, drop me a DM or over on Twitter at Ben Jackson Coach, and I'll reply to every single one of you. Other than that, take care until next time.
This is how legends are made.